Tonight on Bridge City News, police are still looking for an Alberta man whose burnt-out truck was discovered in BC. You see the red shirts in many areas of our city, especially in the downtown core. Lethbridge Police have an update as to the success of the Watch program. And Alberta Premier Jason Kenney says the unions need to chill out when it comes to potential layoffs of public sector workers, but AUPE President Guy Smith disagrees.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Robbins.
Good evening. Thanks so much for joining us. The province's nurses union has said 500 positions will be eliminated over the next 3 years, while public school teachers and staff at post-secondary schools also face job losses. The president of the Alberta Union of Provincial Employees, Guy Smith, says in total, 5,900 of his members may be laid off. He says those members are prepared to take action.
I was just in a meeting with all of our local chairs today, and I said, please prepare your members for potential job action if needed, once we go into negotiations next year on a number of different collective agreements, because we may not be able to get a negotiated settlement at the table, and we need to be prepared to take action. My biggest concern is we're seeing a government that's acting very aggressively, recklessly, with no respect for the women and men on the front lines of the public service, and a disregard for labor relations processes, and seem bound and determined to lead us into a conflict, which is unfortunate, but it's one that we've been preparing our members for many months, and it appears that that's on the horizon now.
Premier Jason Kenney says critics of the UCP's budget cuts need to tone down the rhetoric. Kenney, speaking at the UCP's annual general meeting in Calgary, says Albertans would not take lightly and kindly to a general strike and is urging collaboration and cooperation.
The current 4-year period, it's a 2.8% reduction in operating spending between now and fiscal year 2022-23, which is, I believe, $1.3 billion on a $55 billion budget. So, listen, I understand that the NDP, I mean, their job, their reason for existing is to tax more and spend more. So I get why they would oppose even a modest program of fiscal restraint. But they're making this out to be like the arrival of the apocalypse. This is ridiculous. This is, by modern Canadian fiscal standards, one of the most modest periods of fiscal restraint. The truth is this: a number of those same leaders have, in the wage reopener arbitration, asked for salary increases in 1 year of as much as 8%, when the average private sector family's income is down by 8% over the past 4 years.
After the AGM in Calgary, Premier Kenney flew to Toronto for the Council of the Federation, where he met with the other premiers. He says 13 of the country's premiers back key aspects of Alberta's Fair Deal plan, which includes the removal of the per capita equalization cap that prevents Alberta from receiving full payments following declines in provincial revenue. That would add $1.7 billion retroactive payments going back to 2015 and 2016. Discussions at the meetings in Toronto focused on streamlining resource project assessments in the Federal Environmental Impact Act and getting Alberta's energy products to market. Federal Conservative leader Andrew Scheer dismissed those calling for him to step down. Scheer said even though he was disappointed with October's election results, he's going to continue on as leader. He says now is the time for the federal Conservatives to be united.
Our party must remain a party where all are welcome, or it will fall. And that is the real reason why Justin Trudeau needs our party to be divided. Because he came out of this election with big losses. Knocked down from a strong majority government won just 4 years ago to a weakened minority and shut out of much of this country. And his priority, the Liberals' only priority, will be to get that majority back. 15 seats. That's what they're thinking about. That's all they need. He will absolutely find a reason to head back to the polls as soon as he thinks he can get it. The Liberals know that the NDP is weakened and broke. As soon as Elections Canada sends out the party rebates in the spring and the Liberals get their money, Trudeau will get ready to try to get his majority back. And we know what he'll be running on. A carbon tax, a higher carbon tax. Is that what Canada needs? No. Playing one region off against the other in this country. Will that create prosperity? No. Taking firearms away from law-abiding farmers and hunters and letting dangerous criminals off easy. Will that make Canada a safer place?
Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe met with his Ontario and New Brunswick counterparts to announce a new nuclear energy agreement yesterday.
Together, our provinces can achieve a bigger and bolder objectives and seize the opportunity to play a very major role in the development and the deployment of small modular nuclear reactor technology in our nation. And in doing so, Canadians working together, like we are here today, from coast to coast to coast, can play an even larger role in addressing climate change across Canada and throughout the world. We believe that we can do this without unnecessary taxes that burden families, businesses, taxes that really do little in actually reducing emissions directly.
The Watch, modeled after similar programs in Vancouver and Winnipeg, is an initiative to enhance community safety downtown. Highly visible with their red shirts, Watch patrollers are deployed throughout the year to connect people with the appropriate response from police or emergency medical services.
We are responding to more and more mental health calls daily. Our officers on the front line are being tied up with dealing with things that are really health-related issues. Sometimes they become police matters for sure, but again, at the end of the day, a lot of times we're the default to police service, right? We're the default to service within the community because people just really don't know what they do. So we have to have some of these programs in place to try and reduce some of our time and resources on that.
The City of Lethbridge is looking at handing off school bus operations to the public and Catholic school divisions. At today's Community Issues Committee meeting, the two school divisions presented information pertaining to the current transportation delivery system, illustrating the benefits to the three partners, including the students and Lethbridge taxpayers.
Our message today is, we can really sit and talk about the concerns that you have, rightfully so, as someone who's providing a service that isn't necessarily part of their core business. But I think that we also want to be able to demonstrate that there are huge advantages to the community, to the citizens that they serve, by maintaining a relationship with us, and that we believe there's always been open dialogue, there's always been authentic discussion, there's always been transparency, and we're hoping that in fact that can continue to be the case.
We fully understand that we've got a great partnership with the city and two school divisions. We know that it doesn't cost the city any money. There was some indication there was some hidden costs. We know that that's not factual. We also know that if we wanted to have a conversation around liability, we can address that as well. This is a great service for both school divisions, for the students, for parents, and we just want to try and ensure that City Council understands that and makes the right decision for us to continue in this long-standing partnership.
The school divisions say they were not included in any consultation during the operational review, and that risk and liability had never been flagged in the past. Police are still searching for an Alberta man after his missing burnt-out truck was found in British Columbia. 26-year-old Marshall Iwasa was last seen November 17th in Lethbridge. He told his family he was headed to Calgary but never arrived. Last week, Pemberton, BC RCMP were notified about the burnt-out 2009 GMC Sierra with an Alberta plate. Iwasa is described at 5 feet 11 inches tall, around 170 pounds, with brown hair, brown eyes, and a mustache. He was last seen wearing a green hoodie, gray toque, red high-top running shoes, and black pants. If you've seen him, call Crime Stoppers right away at 1-800-222-8477. Operation Red Nose kicked off their campaign this weekend in Lethbridge. The group, in its 25th year, uses volunteers to drive people home in their own vehicles who've been out drinking. Through donations from clients, just over $2,400 was collected over the weekend while providing 102 safe rides. Operation Red Nose currently has 110 volunteers, but are looking for more. If you can help out, contact the University of Lethbridge at the email you see below. Woods Homes is a children's mental health center. They provide treatment and support to kids and families with mental health needs. It is based in Calgary, but has a support group right here in Lethbridge. They're holding their annual Mall Madness, looking for donations for new or gently used toys and household items. With these donations, their youth will be able to pick out gifts this Christmas for members of their families.
Our Mall Madness event is an annual event that we put on for the children and youth of Woods Homes. It's a day where they can come and have fun, make a craft, and shop for items without actually having to spend any money. They can gather items to give away to their family members and loved ones, and actually have something to put under the tree. It's happening this Friday afternoon. We're looking for donations of all kinds. So what we're looking for is gift items for people of all ages, from babies to adults, and we're hoping to have them gathered in by this Thursday.
You can drop off your donation at Woods Homes, located at 312 3rd Avenue South. The 15th annual Lethbridge Mayor's Prayer Breakfast took place over the weekend. There was a large crowd on hand to show their support for not only the mayor and council, but for our provincial and federal politicians as well. The event is organized by the Lethbridge Evangelical Ministerial Association.
Our heart and intent is to honor our governmental leaders, pray for them. The Bible tells us to do that. Actually, the Bible says that God has appointed them. Even though we vote for them, ultimately He appoints them, and He's called us to pray for them, to honor them. And so that's the heart behind this thing, and they certainly need our prayers. I mean, these are tough days, some challenging issues out there, and it's a hard job. And so they definitely need our prayers. They need our prayer for covering, protection. This isn't a part, it's not a partisan thing. We have different opinions. This is just about supporting them as God's servants. They appreciate our prayers, whether they're, Christians or not. They value our support and our backing.
The Coaldale Fire Department says an investigation has determined careless smoking was the cause of a fatal house fire in the southern Alberta town of Nobleford. Emergency crews responded to the fire last weekend, and they found a 27-year-old man in the home who was dead inside. The house sustained significant damage, and 2 other adjacent homes suffered heat damage. The man's name was not released. A murder charge has been laid in the death of an Edmonton man last week. 22-year-old Douglas Crossman's body was discovered inside of a West End apartment building on Thursday when police responded to a 911 call for assistance. Police arrested and charged 24-year-old Braden Barkley of Edmonton with second-degree murder over the weekend. Police say they are not releasing further details that may compromise their investigation. 3 people were killed in a single-engine plane that crashed while attempting to land at a San Antonio, Texas International Airport. San Antonio Fire Chief Charles Hood said the pilot reported having engine trouble and was trying to make an emergency landing.
Information that we have at this time was there was a small single-engine airplane that took off from Sugar Land Airport, was on their way to Boerne, developed some type of engine trouble indicator, decided to call an Alert 2. And Alert 2 means they were going to come to San Antonio International and try to make an emergency landing. We received that call for the emergency landing. Unfortunately, that plane landed or fell short behind me about 150 yards. Units arrived, found the plane almost on the sidewalk, kind of on the sidewalk half of the street. There were no commercial buildings hit, no apartment complexes. We are confirming 3 fatalities at this time. The next phase of this, which will be the extrication, removal, and the investigation, which are all going to kind of go hand in hand.
2 people died and 12 others were wounded following a couple of shootings yesterday in New Orleans. One occurred near the French Quarter, which is a popular spot for tourists. The other occurred hours later in another part of the city. Police say both shootings remain under investigation and said at this point there's no connection between the two. No arrests were announced, and police did not release any information about any of the victims. Police in New Orleans said overall the city has still seen a reduction of violent crime over the past 4 years. The Christian Institute says primary schools in the United Kingdom should not be intimidated into creating a pro-LGBTQ2+ curriculum. John Denning is the Christian Institute's education officer. He says it follows a guide from the lobby group Stonewall, which says schools have to ensure lessons are LGBTQ2+ inclusive.
These comments seem designed to intimidate schools. Of course, schools must do all they can to combat any and all bullying. But Ofsted are not specifically looking for this type of approach. There's nothing in the inspection documents that requires schools to teach LGBT issues across the curriculum. Our new booklet, Equipped for Equality, helps parents understand what schools can and can't do in the name of equality law and human rights.
It was on this day that scientists demonstrated the world's first artificially created self-sustaining nuclear chain reaction. Enron files for Chapter 11 protection, and a Colombian drug lord is shot and killed. This is Today in History for December the 2nd.
December 2nd, 1954.
Traitors are not gentlemen, my good friends. They don't understand being treated like that.
In Washington, the U.S. Senate takes the rare step of condemning one of its own, Joseph McCarthy, Republican of Wisconsin. McCarthy is censured for bringing the Senate into disrepute after his anti-communist crusade and its tactics come under fire. 1942. At the University of Chicago, scientists demonstrate the world's first artificially created self-sustaining nuclear chain reaction. Their work is part of the Manhattan Project, the top-secret American-led effort to develop nuclear weapons during World War II. 2001. One-time energy giant Enron files for Chapter 11 protection in one of the largest corporate bankruptcies in U.S. history. 1993. In Colombia, Pablo Escobar, one of the world's most notorious drug lords, is shot to death by security forces in Medellin. And 1982. In Salt Lake City, Barney Clark receives a permanent artificial heart in the first operation of its kind. Dr. Robert Jarvik is the inventor of the device implanted into Clark's chest.
I don't think I could have expected it to go better. I certainly could have and did have fears that it could have gone much, much worse.
Clark lives 112 days with the artificial heart after the operation at the University of Utah Medical Center. Today in history, December 2nd. Ed Donahue, The Associated Press.
Now, have you ever wondered what kids' drawings would actually look like if they came to life? Well, thanks to computer graphics and a talented CGI artist, you now can. You know, they're nicely done, but still a little bit creepy at the same time. Make sure you stock up on the windshield washer fluid. The meltdown will continue in our region as we get closer to double-digit temperatures over the next few days. Complete weather details are coming up. We had sunshine mixed with some clouds today, but nice and mild. Tonight, just a few clouds developing with a low near zero. Tomorrow, mainly sunny with a high expected near 8 degrees. Wednesday, lots of sunshine again with a high of 9. Cooling off quite a bit on Thursday with the mercury dropping down to the freezing mark. Friday, more clouds roll in, but the temperature should warm up to 9 degrees again. Cooling off for the weekend, expect a high of only -1 on Saturday. Sunday, mainly sunny with a high near 3. Checking the almanac, the average high for this time of year is +1 with an average low of -10. The highest temperature on the state was recorded in 1941 at 15 degrees, and the record low was -32 in 1950. Sunrise was at 8:08, sunset at 4:34. Let's see how tomorrow's shaping up across Canada now. Expect rain and a high of 8 degrees for Victoria. Showers and 7 is on tap for Vancouver on Tuesday. Expect a few clouds and 7 in Calgary. Mainly sunny and 5 degrees for Edmonton. Lots of sunshine and +2 for both Regina and Saskatoon. Just a few clouds and 0 for Winnipeg tomorrow. Increasing clouds and 3 degrees for Toronto. Mainly sunny and -4 for Ottawa. Blue sky and sunshine and -3 for Montreal on Tuesday. In the Maritimes, Fredericton, New Brunswick had a snowfall warning today. Tomorrow, ice pellets or more snow and a high of -1. Rain and 8 degrees is on tap for Halifax, Nova Scotia. Charlottetown, PEI should also receive rain and get up to 4 degrees. And in St. John's, Newfoundland, expect showers and a high near 3 degrees for tomorrow. Calgary-based Husky Energy has revealed more details of major job cuts announced this year. The company says around 370 jobs have been slashed. Now, most of the reductions came in October. Husky also says capital spending for 2020 and 2021 is being cut by $500 million. A thermal project in Lloydminster, Saskatchewan will be part of its capital spending focus next year. A rival bidder for Hudson's Bay Company has extended the deadline for the retailer's board to formally accept its offer. The unsolicited offer from Catalyst Capital Group was set to expire last week, but was extended until 5 o'clock today. The investment firm says a special committee of the board at HBC requested the extension based on indications of progress. Catalyst is offering $11 per share in cash for HBC. That tops a friendly offer of $10.30 made by a group of investors led by HBC Executive Chairman Richard Baker. BC's struggling forest industry has been hit hard by both permanent and temporary shutdowns of its sawmills. BC Liberal forestry critic John Rustad says the situation is causing widespread economic and social pain. Forest Minister Doug Donaldson says low timber prices and the large-scale destruction of crown harvest zones during the pine beetle epidemic and record wildfire seasons have really hurt the industry. The United Auto Workers Union says it reached a tentative new contract with Fiat Chrysler over the weekend. A spokesperson says the deal includes a $9,000 signing bonus for workers and a promise to not close any factories over the next 4 years. There was also a commitment to continue making vehicles at a plant in Illinois. The person spoke on condition of anonymity because the talks are private. You may have noticed that your car insurance rates have gone up. Many insurance companies say they are losing money. Mark Fian is with Fair Alberta Injury Regulators. He says don't believe everything you hear when it comes to insurance companies saying they're in the red.
So far this year, just by way of example, one insurance company, AMA, everybody knows who AMA is, they have made in the first half of this year profit before taxes of over $32 million. So, right. So how are they losing money? We have said to the insurance industry, if you're saying you're losing money, open your books. Let us have a look at your books. And they have just ignored us.
Catch the full interview with Mark Fian from FAIR discussing the insurance industry and where you stand. That's coming up after business news. Now, here's a look at today's markets. The TSX was down almost 59 points on the day to 16,981. The Dow was down 268 points to 27,783. The S&P 500 was down 27 points to 3113, and the Nasdaq was down 97 points to 8567. Oil was up 82 cents on the day to $55.99 per barrel. Natural gas was up 6 cents to $2.34. Gold was up 4 cents to $14.6247 per ounce, and silver was unchanged at $16.91 per ounce. Wheat is at $235 per metric ton, barley's at $238, canola's at $4.58, and corn is at $273 per metric ton. Live cattle were down 45 cents to $120.75, feeder cattle were down 13 cents to $142.15, and lean hogs were down $2.03 to $66.15. The Canadian dollar was up slightly on the day to $75.15 US. Recapping one of our top stories this hour, police are still searching for an Alberta man after his missing burnt-out truck was found in British Columbia. 26-year-old Marshall Iwasa was last seen November 17th in Lethbridge. He told his family he was headed to Calgary but never arrived. Last week, Pemberton BC RCMP were notified about the burned-out 2009 GMC Sierra with an Alberta license plate. The insurance industry says a big reason why your rates have gone up is because they're losing money. Now, is that really the case? Mark Fian with Fair Alberta Injury Regulators begs to differ. He explains why next. But first, here's a look what's happening in and around your community.
Here's your Bridge City News community calendar. The YWCA Lethbridge and District's annual Stockings of Hope campaign is underway until Monday, December 16th. Each year, this initiative helps women in crisis experience the joy of the Christmas season by providing them with gifts and much-needed personal items. Residents and businesses can stop by the YWCA to adopt the stocking and fulfill a Christmas wish by purchasing some or all of the gifts on the list, then return the gifts unwrapped to the YWCA by December 16th. For more information about this worthy cause, call 403-329-0088. Martin Brothers Funeral Chapels invite you to attend their annual Holiday Remembrance Program on December 3rd at 7 p.m. at their Riverview Chapel. Holidays can be a difficult time for many who have lost a loved one, and this event gives an opportunity to honor those who have left us and support those who are still with us. For more information, call Martin Brothers at 403-328-2361. Come for a festive evening to Crossroads Counseling's Shine the Light Christmas Celebration and Fundraiser on Friday, December 6th, beginning at 6 p.m. at the Coast Lethbridge Hotel. Enjoy a full-course dinner, a silent auction, and live musical entertainment featuring the Freedom House Choir, Westside Choir, and the Evangelical Free Church Praise Choir. Tickets are $50 per person and can be purchased at the Crossroads Counseling Office. And that's your Bridge City News community calendar.
By now, you've probably noticed the vehicle insurance premiums have gone up in Alberta. Is it because insurance companies are not able to make a profit because of higher claims being made? Or is it simply a push to increase their profit margins? Joining me now to talk about it is Mark Fian, spokesperson for Fair Alberta Injury Regulations, and former president of the Alberta Civil Trial Lawyers Association. Mark, welcome to Bridge City News.
Well, thanks very much for having me.
Mark, what is Fair Alberta all about, and what are you trying to accomplish here?
So FAIR is an acronym, FAIR. We have a website. I want to get that out right away so I don't forget. fairab.ca. So FAIR Alberta Injury Regulations. And what it is, and we were talking a little bit before the camera came on, about some of the things that insurance companies are doing to people in Alberta, allegedly because they say they are losing money. And the group that I am with and I'm a spokesperson for is looking at this, and we represent a pretty significant cross-section of various components of the Alberta community. We have medical professionals, doctors, chiropractors, physiotherapists. We have in our group legal professionals. We have injury victims. We have consumers. And we are wondering also what is going on. There's quite a bit of history to the whole insurance scheme in Alberta. And there's a new government in place, and that is who our message really is for.
Yeah, the Alberta government scrapped a 5% insurance rate cap that was put in place by the NDP. Why was that?
So, okay, so if you go back 15 years to 2003, 2002, the insurance industry deliberately, now, and we know this, and we can prove this, they deliberately rate shocked Alberta. They were handing 17, 18-year-old kids bills to drive a car for a year of $7,000, $8,000, $9,000. So kids, wow, of course, can't afford that. They would go to their parents. They would go, "What's going on?" And they would call up their MLA, and the MLAs were, "Oh my God, we got to do something." So Ralph Klein and his group at that time, they stepped in. They said, "We're going to regulate this. So we're going to limit how much insurance companies can charge for liability, and we're going to put a cap on minor injuries." And so for the last 15 years in Alberta, there has been this scheme in place. It took a few years for things to sort out, but over about the last 10 years now, we think the system is pretty stable. And just in the last year, since the new government came in, the insurance industry is back to rate shocking. I think that they're looking at what worked 15 years ago. They want to make some more money. They want to get the government to limit even further what they have to pay for. They want to include chronic pain in the definition of minor injury. And I have seen chronic pain cases last an entire lifetime. Chronic pain injuries can plague somebody for their entire life. That is not a minor injury. But the insurance industry and even Premier Kenney is talking about how lawyers, and I'm one of those, this is my business, this is what I do, have found loopholes in the legislation to get around the cap. But chronic pain, right from the very beginning, the Court of Appeal of Alberta said that is a more serious injury than the chronic pain, than the minor injury regulations contemplate. So this is not something that lawyers have gotten around. What they're saying is we want to include a non-capped, a major injury into the minor injury definition.
You know, and some say that personal injury awards have been on the rise. That's why we're seeing a lot of these rates increasing. Any stats to actually support that?
I do have some paper here, and that absolutely is not true. There is not a lot of information. This is one of the big issues that we're talking about. A lot of the information, all of the information that we have available to us as the general public, and that's where we are. We go to the federal regulations, we go to the provincial regulations. This one here says that so far this year, just by way of example, one insurance company, AMA, everybody knows who AMA is, they have made in the first half of this year profit before taxes of over $32 million.
Wow.
So, right. So how are they losing money? We have said to the insurance industry, if you're saying you're losing money, open your books. Let us have a look at your books. And they have just ignored us. They have not opened the books. They're handing this line to the government. Now, you don't get any smarter because you get elected to office. You come into it the person you are, and you now have a duty as a representative of the people to look into these issues, to become informed, and to make a responsible decision. We have gone to the government, the insurance companies are going to the government, and we're very concerned that the government is not paying attention to their responsibilities. They're listening to the insurance companies saying, we're losing money, and we want to make sure that they also hear the other side of the coin, that we say they are making lots of money and that we don't want injury claims to be minimized further.
So, Mark, what's the current cap on soft tissue injuries right now?
I think right now it's about $5,300.
Apparently, some people are finding ways to get around that somehow. Can you explain?
Well, what the insurance industry means by that when they say yes, and they've been saying that, what they say is, well, we think that there should be non-capped claims in that. So if you get more for a non-capped claim, then you're somehow circumventing the minor injury regulations. Well, if you have a brain injury and you get more money than $5,000, you didn't get around the cap. You were compensated for a non-minor injury.
So how do we compare it to other provinces?
In terms of premiums that we pay, we are just a little bit less than average. Now, I don't know with these new statistics what's going to happen. The cost of the system to the province is we're right about in the middle. Is about we're neither higher nor lower. British Columbia is outrageous. I think that on average, a person driving a car here pays around $1,200 or $1,300, add $1,000 if you live in BC.
Wait a minute, that's the government control like Saskatchewan. So maybe public auto insurance isn't the best way to go?
Well, it depends on what you want. Does Alberta want to live in a system where you have no rights to sue? You're basically, you get an injury, you look it up on a meat chart, and that's the amount of money you get. That's not very applicable for everybody. It might fit the sort of the general central category, but it doesn't fit. And you know, that's not the issue these days, whether we should have a no fault or government insurance. What FAIR is about is trying to make sure that our government representatives, our government officials, including the Premier and the Minister of Finance and Treasury, make a responsible decision about the claims that are being made by the insurance industry and making sure that they check into the facts. Okay, so there's a couple things that are, I'm not sure if you're getting this down there, but there are a couple of spokespersons for the Insurance Bureau of Canada, IBC, and they've been saying that for every dollar of premium, for every premium dollar collected, they're paying out $1.12. If you look at that statement, every premium dollar collected, well, that's not all the money that insurance companies bring in. When they collect premiums, they don't pay it out for 5 or 6 or 8 or 10 years. In the meantime, they invest it, and these are high power investments that we're talking about. You don't just get 3 or 4% when you're an insurance company, right? You can go to the high power preferred investments, and you can get over 10%. So if you're bringing in 10% more, and you don't include that in that statement that we're losing 12 cents, how is that fair? That's a deceptive thing to say. Now we're looking at that kind of stuff and we're going, well, we hope the government's not listening to this, because it's clearly at least misinformation, if not out and out deception. And they have been caught. The insurance industry, or I can't remember which insurance company it was, but about a year ago, this particular company went to the Alberta Insurance Rate Board, and they are the ones that receive insurance requests for increases, and they allow it or don't allow it, or say, okay, you can get 2% or 4% or whatever. And that's the cap that was in place, and that was lifted by the UCP about 2 months ago.
Mark, how common is insurance fraud today? In particular, people who may fake or exaggerate an injury to receive big compensation.
Yeah, you know what? There's a lot of issues that we could talk about. I personally have been doing this for almost 40 years, and I can count on one hand the number of true, and I mean less than 5 times in 40 years the number of true times that I think there was a fraud.
Wow.
It's extremely remote. Somebody else with other information might say something different. I think that is just something that they're using to, oh, well, we got to stop paying these fraudsters. Somebody gets into a car accident and says they got a sore neck. You can call them a fraud. Does that make them a fraud? We have a court system to verify whether people are actually injured. We have doctors, we have insurance lawyers and investigators and adjusters. They are looking very carefully. They're very alive to this issue. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about, if I can just go back to that claim about a year ago where they were asking for an increase in the premium. So they have to go to the AIRB, Alberta Insurance Rate Board, and they have to prove that they need more money. So they bring this information. The government's own auditor looked at the data that insurance company provided and said, and this is a public statement, that is not reliable information. And what do you mean? Said, well, they're saying that on average they're paying out too much money per claim, but they didn't include all the claims. They only took the high-end claims. They didn't include the low-end claims, so that skews the average. It skews the numbers, and it was largely in response to that incident that happened about a year ago that the NDP decided they didn't think they could believe the insurance industry. They hired an actuary out of Ontario, and he, for about almost a year now, has been working on a report which is due out in the next month, and he is going to tell us whether the insurance industry is a profitable business or not. And I think that's what's going on right now. They're trying to get ahead of that before the government finds out what the truth is.
Mark, I've noticed with my own insurance company, when it comes to auto insurance, it's gone up about 30% in the last year or so. I've got a clean record, no accidents. One of my coworkers, who's quite a bit younger than I am, hers has gone up about 120%. What do you think is a fair profit margin for these insurance companies?
Well, that's a really good question. And I don't know. And this is the problem that the provincial government of Alberta got itself into 15 years ago, because they are responsible for telling an industry how much a fair profit is. Well, the industry wants more. They're like the bears in the national park. You give them something, it's not enough ever. They want more, give us more, give us more. So we do not want the industry to collapse and fail, because it's a valuable, important part of Alberta society. We need insurance. So that's the question. But that is the decision that a responsible government has to make. We ought to make sure that they're not raking in more money than they should be, and we don't want them to go broke either. But how are you going to know unless they open their books and show us how much money they're making? And they have refused to do that so far.
It's interesting. I was talking to one of our government officials here, provincial government officials, and that person was talking to our local police force here in Lethbridge, saying that the amount of young people driving without insurance now is through the roof because they simply can't afford it. What they do is they get their PIN card, then they refuse to pay.
Yeah, I've been hearing about that as well. And I've also heard the government, of course, there's always, for the innocent victim, there's a fallback position. There's the Motor Vehicle Accident Claims Fund, which is managed by the province of Alberta, and they will pay up to $200,000 for somebody injured by an uninsured driver. Plus, they can have their own insurance kick in up to whatever their limits are. So for the injured person, that's not a bad thing. But yes, I mean, there's always going to be issues with fraud and people driving without insurance. But again, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about misinformation being given by the insurance industry really as a whole, and shocking people with high rates so that they cause people to go to the government and say, what's going, like you were talking about your friend there, whose insurance went up 120%. I'm sure she's mad about that, and she ought to be. It wouldn't be a surprise to me if she phoned up her MLA and said, well, you got to do something. So if that's all the MLAs are hearing, they're going to think, we got a problem here. Insurance companies are charging too much money. Hopefully, though, they will say, let's just stop for a second and let's look at this. Let's get their books. Let's look and see how much they're making. Let's find out if this is a legitimate thing that's going on or if it's just a manufactured crisis.
Yeah, transparency is what it's all about, definitely. Mark Fian, spokesperson for Fair Alberta Injury Regulations. Thanks for joining me today from Edmonton.
Thank you very much for having me.
Homeopathy is one of the many natural health approaches to finding help with a variety of illnesses. Many believe it has improved their health. There are other people who say it's not really backed by science and it hasn't helped me that much. Joining me now in studio to discuss this is Jean-Jacques Van Tonder, who's a homeopath and president of Maison Naturelle International, located right here in Lethbridge. Welcome to Bridge City News, Jean-Jacques.
Thank you, Al.
So homeopathy, can you explain to our viewers what it is exactly?
Okay, homeopathy is the medicine that is used by natural practitioners, and it goes by the principle of like cures like, and that stems from even Hippocrates himself. He had the idea of like could cure like, but didn't come to light until the 1700s with a doctor called Samuel Hahnemann from Germany.
Okay.
He discovered that a substance used could actually cure the problems that that substance would cause in a dilution. So
Diluted state, right.
Absolutely. He came upon this when he was translating a document from Dr. William Cullen, stating that cinchona, or the Peruvian bark, would be used thanks to its astringent qualities to heal malaria.
Oh.
And him being fascinated in chemistry, he knew that there were other astringents that were better than that. And it didn't make sense for him. So being a person that wants to know more, he decided to take small bits of quinine and ingest them, and he wrote down all the symptoms that he'd experienced. And it mirrored the exact symptoms of malaria.
So Jean-Jacques, what are some of the substances in homeopathic medicines? What are they made out of?
Well, they're made of 3 different areas: the mineral kingdom, the plant kingdom, and the animal kingdom. So when we're taking, for example, arnica. Arnica is a little beautiful flower that grows in the mountains. When you dilute arnica in an extract, then you can use it to treat bruising, shock, lack of good circulation, and so on.
Wow.
If we're taking the animal kingdom, a person that's allergic to bees, for example, apis is the Latin word for bees. When we take apis in a 5CH dilution, which is a dilution that is 100 to the 5th power, so you can imagine that's quite dilute.
Sure.
But when you ingest that, swelling goes down within 5 minutes.
Wow.
Because it gives the body the information of what is causing the problem. Like cures like.
Now, one of the arguments against homeopathic medicine is the fact that it's diluted to such a high degree, you're essentially left with no molecules from the original source. How would you respond to that?
Well, that is interesting, because when you take a molecule, it's going to have an effect on your body. But because it goes through the digestive system. But what happens to that molecule when there's only information from it left, but not actually the molecule left? You actually are able to have a higher quality of efficiency. So to bypass the digestive tract, for example, a person with hyperactivity disorder. When you take coffee, if you take too much coffee, it's going to cause a hyperactivity in you. But if you dilute coffee to a certain dilution, you're actually going to give the body the frequency or the information from that, and it's going to reverse the process. So it's very fascinating how it works.
What do you say to some people, though, Jean-Jacques, that say homeopathic medicines have worked very well for them, but other people say, no, it's more like a placebo effect? That's really what you're experiencing here.
Well, that could be for some people. But in most cases, it's because there's information being given to their cells and the memory of their cells to be able to help their body heal itself for itself. That's why we don't mainly treat a symptom, we treat a person. And each person is different. And so we would do different treatments for different people. What goes for one doesn't necessarily go for the other in the same symptom. because their body functions differently. And so we have to adapt.
How about scientific evidence actually supporting homeopathy?
Well, there's quite a bit actually. There's been lots of research. I was trained in the homeopathic lab in Paris, in France, under Dr. Albert Claude Kemoun. And he's one of the world's biggest researchers in homeopathy. Actually, in 2000, he was called to go to India to help teach 1,000 people how to detoxify the population from arsenic poisoning. Because they discovered that many people were getting so ill and they were dying from arsenic poisoning. And the reason for that is that 20 years prior to that, they capped all the wells, and so there was no more vegetation which would draw the arsenic out of the water. So they were becoming intoxicated.
I understand that public health insurance in countries in Europe, including Switzerland, now includes coverage for homeopathy. Are you aware of any other countries that are doing this right now?
To my knowledge, France does to a certain percentage of the prescription. So if a homeopathic medical doctor decides to say, well, you need arnica or you need any other substance which is homeopathic, a portion of that would be covered.
Do we see a lot of homeopathic medicine throughout Europe today?
Yes, there is a lot. There is a lot, including England. The Queen Mother uses homeopathy and has for years and years.
Oh, what kind of ailments is it being treated for?
Well, she used homeopathy in her daily living, and that's why she's so healthy. And so she's been treating herself with natural medicine for many, many years.
But we see a lot more of the homeopathic medicines as well in countries in Asia, including India.
India is huge. India uses homeopathy and has for many, many years. The advantage of homeopathy is you take a substance, you dilute that substance, and one dilution is going to do one thing, another dilution is going to do something else in an infirmity. But because you're diluting, so it becomes very not too expensive to be able to have that medicine available. And India, people aren't very, very wealthy, and so it becomes accessible to most people. And so it's beautiful to be able to use that.
So Jean-Jacques, what illnesses in particular have you seen homeopathic medicine really help people with?
Digestive disorders, hormonal imbalance, arthritis, rheumatisms, even in pregnancy. I'm fortunate to be able to help some people in Panama, and there are two couples that just could not get pregnant. And thanks to the treatments that I'd given them, both of them became pregnant.
That's amazing. I have a bit of a sensitivity when it comes to mint. You know, I can't use mint toothpaste. I go to the dentist, you know, they clean my teeth, then use the mint dental floss. I'm like, I'll be inflamed, right? Now, I'm also told the patient should not consume anything containing mint. What is it about mint that really inhibits the medicine, homeopathic medicine?
Okay, well, mint will cancel homeopathics. And the reason for that is because when you ingest mint, what happens is it surrounds all the cells. And you can feel it when you have a mint toothpaste or a mint candy.
It's strong.
It's strong.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not that it cancels it as such, but it surrounds the cells, which prevents the information going back and forth, so it annuls everything. And that's how it works.
Now, does a homeopath have any kind of testing beforehand to determine what really to prescribe patients?
In a way, yes, because we go through a slew of questions. Even questions like, for example, do you prefer being in the mountains or at seaside? Now, that has nothing to do with an ailment.
Both.
But for us...
I love both.
Well, that's the thing, and so it's hard
Right.
to choose. But some people that prefer more the sea, certain remedies are going to work better for them than those that prefer the mountains. And so we ask a bunch of questions.
Let's say if I had fibromyalgia, right? A lot of people in my family suffer from that.
Yeah.
And I love being close to the ocean, by the sea. What would you recommend for me then?
Well, I would say, first of all, we'd work on detoxifying cells and tissue. Because in most cases with fibromyalgia, there's an intoxication that's happened over many, many years. And then those toxins move from side to side, which means that the pain goes around.
Right.
And then there's a lack of energy, and it continues that way. So what we do is we'd work on first detoxifying the liver, the kidneys, the skin, the intestines, help the body to regain its proper function. And as the elimination happens, so improvement starts happening. And so we'll use certain formulas, substances, homeopathic, to be able to help the body not only regain health and energy, but you evacuate those toxins which are actually causing the root problem, right?
Do you work with victims of car accidents or maybe athletes who've been injured?
I do quite a bit. Arnica is the biggest one for those people. Arnica is the first aid remedy in homeopathy. Now, there are a few cautions. Arnica, if a person's had a car accident, you cannot give arnica less than 7 CH dilution. 7 CH dilution is a safe dilution and higher. Okay. If it's less, like say for example it's 4 CH, if there's internal bleeding, it could increase that bleeding. Oh, wow. And so that's where you want to be careful. And there's just a few cautions in homeopathy, but very few. Arnica is one of them. So 7 CH and higher is safe. Sulfur is another one. If you take sulfur homeopathically, if you haven't eliminated toxins and opened the eliminatory systems, then you can create an explosion of elimination. So I don't know if you've seen people with rashes on their skin and boils. Well, that's what happens when you give sulfur in a higher dilution. 5 CH doesn't work like that, but 15, 30 CH, it'll push stuff out. That's why sulfur is called the king of homeopathy.
Is there a danger, though, Jean-Jacques, between combining traditional medicine with homeopathic medicine?
There is not, actually. In France, they use it all the time. They give a prescription, and they say, okay, but for these things, you need to take homeopathy. But the only importance to know is that it needs to be taken 2 hours separate from prescriptions, because else homeopathics won't work. The prescription is going to be too strong. Because you're dealing with dilutions, you're going to have no effects. And so they're totally compatible if you use it the right way.
How about people who suffer from arthritis? How can you help them out?
Arthritis is a build-up of acids. So there's 3 different kind of acids: oxalic acid, phosphatic acid, and uric acid, which is the main one, the cause of arthritis. Right. And that's a build-up on the bones and joints. Once you start eliminating that using the evacuation, thanks to homeopathy, arthritis diminishes and agility and flexibility in joints starts happening again.
How can we use homeopathic medicine to help treat patients who suffer from diabetes or even cancer?
Those are a little tough. However, there's been great success with homeopathy with that. Now, it depends what stage of cancer. If you're talking about cancer, cancer is a tough one.
Like maybe early on, stage 1 or 2?
If it's early on cancer, we can, and again, cancer, what is it? It's an accumulation of bad cells which multiply. So if toxins have accumulated to such a degree, the best way is to eliminate those toxins. And if the tumors have proliferated, you need to use, for example, the homeopathic substances, including iodine, to burn up those tumors and evacuate the toxins. Now, we like I said, we treat the individual, not specifically the problem. Once you start rectifying systems in an individual, it starts building up strength and eliminating the bad in the system.
How about helping somebody with migraines?
That as well. Migraines is a tough one in a sense that 10 migraines are different for different people. It could be structural. It could be something out in C1, C2, C3.
Environmental, maybe?
It could be environmental allergy. The root cause of allergies are intestinal intoxication. Okay. And so migraines could be hormonal too. Once we rectify those and balance the systems and organs, then migraines tend to dissipate. So migraines are a hard one to treat, but very efficient in homeopathy.
How about adverse side effects from taking homeopathic medicine?
So
Are there any?
There aren't adverse side effects. So if we understand side effects, so for example, if I take a prescription drug and I get all these symptoms, that's a side effect. Right. In homeopathy, it doesn't really work that way. The worst you could get is maybe a skin rash, maybe a little bit of diarrhea, if that was the case, but it either works or it doesn't. You could have a healing crisis, which means the body's healing faster than what you'd expect, and so maybe you'd have that rash, which I was talking about. But there's no adverse side effects in homeopathy. We actually use it for pregnant women, we use it for animals, we use it for infants. It's totally safe, and it's the beauty of it because it helps and works. Now
it's au naturel.
It's a naturel, that's right. If the healing doesn't take place like, you know what, I have this symptom, I take this and the symptom's going to be gone. It doesn't work that way because you got there and it took time to get there. So it's a gradual, and maybe in the space of a few days, a few weeks, depending on the symptom, it dissipates and goes away.
So any final thoughts or advice you want to share with our viewers on homeopathic treatment? Maybe somebody's a little nervous about getting started?
Well, I would say, you'll never know until you try. It's safe. There's no side effects as such. The worst that can happen is that it doesn't work.
You don't need a prescription?
You don't need a prescription. You can go to a health food store, you can pick up some homeopathics, or you can come to see a professional like myself, and we can help you in a way that you can actually get the treatment that fits yourself so that you can heal. Cure everything, I'm not going to say that does that because it's not true. You need just like it takes a community to raise an infant or a child, it takes many different disciplines to heal a person. And so homeopathy is one of those disciplines which will help a person get better in a gentle, natural way.
Jean-Jacques Von Tonder, a homeopath and president of Maison Naturelle International right here in Lethbridge. Thanks for joining me today on Bridge City News.
Thank you very much.
On behalf of all of us here at BCN, I'm Hal Roberts. God bless, be well, and have a great night.